So to begin there, guys, Brian here, the 3 Topics Gamer here to share with you another one of my awesome game reviews. This time I'll give you my initial thoughts after having beaten the newest kind of semi-re-release of an older Resident Evil game, or technically it wasn't all that old. But I did get a chance to get my own copy of Resident Evil 8 Gold Edition. And just since I'm trying to get these reviews out before my life gets completely consumed by God of War Ragnarok, I don't really have time to kind of script and edit these videos the way I normally do. So I kind of just want to just get my review out, just doing it more, old school raw style that I used to when I started doing my channel like several years ago. So if you happen to enjoy this review by the end, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to track me on my future videos, because I have indeed a lot of content that I really need to get out for the month of November. So just a little bit of a backstory. I originally did not play Resident Evil 8 when it first came out. I'm a firm believer that when it comes to Resident Evil games, they should not be played in a first-person point of view. So that was like the main reason why I still haven't really even beaten or even experimented with Resident Evil 7, and was a main reason why I avoided playing Resident Evil 8. I'm calling it Resident Evil 8. They say Village, but it's Resident Evil 8. However, when they announced that they would be adding a third-person mode, allowing you to have the option of playing it either in first person or third person, that was clearly just the number one reason why I picked it up. Just give me the option to play it as third person. So now that I've actually had a chance to beat it and play it, I can confidently say that Resident Evil 8 is probably my 5th favorite Resident Evil game of all time. It's really good, and I had a great time playing it. Now, I don't want to go into too many spoilers because I want to kind of organize this review. But going into the story, this game takes place after the events of Resident Evil 7. You're playing as Ethan Winters, and his daughter Rose gets kidnapped, and you find yourself being transported, and then the transport vehicle gets attacked, and then you find yourself in this abandoned village, and it is completely infested with lycans. And then once you are then captured again, you then meet the primary antagonists of the games, and apparently they want to use your daughter Rose for some sort of ritual, and it is up for you to kind of collect some important items in order to get Rose back, and then hopefully save her and get out alive as you can. Now, I will say this: I think that the story itself, I didn't think it was great because it was a bit too straightforward. However, I do think the character of Ethan Winters is very well realized. I think Ethan Winters is probably the best father character we've had in Resident Evil. He's very, very focused, very dedicated, and despite him not having any real training, he's just a normal guy. I think he handles himself pretty well under some very, very stressful situations. I think a weakness, however, I think with the story is with the antagonist characters. I don't really think that Resident Evil 8 did a very good job of actually giving our antagonist characters depth in presentation. They have a very, very great introduction to these individual antagonist characters, but they don't do much with them. Some of them have such little screen time, it's almost sad. For example, Big Lady D, as I like to call her, is like the first main antagonist you encounter. And this is a character that was like built up for months leading up to the release of this game. And so you think that with this character having like that much of a pushback for the fans, you would expect to have a pretty big role. And she doesn't. She's actually the very first antagonist character you encounter. And once she's taken out, you never hear from her again. And then as you go through the individual antagonists, while they might seem interesting by themselves, you don't spend enough time with them. Quite literally, each one has hardly any screen time. Even Heisenberg, who I think is my favorite of the antagonists, and even he's not really given much to do. You see him at the very beginning, and then you don't see them at the end. And the same thing goes for even the main antagonist, Mother Miranda. You see her at the very beginning of the game, and then you don't hear from her again until the very end of the game. I was kind of hoping they would have done something similar to Lord Sadler in Resident Evil 4, in which they're able to kind of communicate with you and kind of talk to you about your progression throughout the game. It kind of makes them seem like they're much more active, but Mother Miranda really doesn't. So unfortunately, that is a major flaw that I do have with at least the story. When it comes to gameplay, this game plays very much like Resident Evil's remakes 2 and 3. If you played those games, you're going to feel right at home. There were a number of additions this time around that I was actually quite impressed with. In the addition of there's a lot of treasures. There's several puzzles, a lot of exploration. I thought the combat was great. I thought they had a great collection of enemies that you will encounter over the course of the game. Now, exploration is kind of separated into like 5 different areas, and you have like the main village, and then it splits off into 4 different areas that the main antagonists all kind of control during like their own territory. When it comes to weapons, I think this game had through my first playthrough, had a great collection of different weapons. And what's more is that as you progress and find different like attachments that you can add to your weapons, that allows you to upgrade your weapons. And upgrading your weapons is done by the Duke. Now, I believe this is like the first time we've actually had like a merchant type character. So the Duke is pretty much, this game's version of the merchant. And he actually feels like I think he feels like a real character outside of the merchant who just kind of shows up and just sells you weapons and upgrades your weapons. The Duke actually is a fully realized character that actually gives you information. He gives you directions, and in some cases actually helps you in a couple of key moments, which I wasn't expecting. So I really was happy with just how realized the Duke as a character was done. Another thing, gameplay wise, I thought was also really great was that with the Duke, if you actually go out and hunting, getting certain foods, he can actually make you meals that'll actually enhance your status. I thought that there were a number of boss fights. I thought they were very well planned out. I thought there was. I think I said there were a lot of puzzles that were great. So I thought that aspect of the gameplay was handled very, very well. When you beat the game, there's mercenary modes. Mercenary modes works like every other mercenary modes. They all work just fine. They have different characters. They have different sets of weapons. And then as you progress through each individual mission, you'll gain certain credits that you can use to buy certain bonuses. I thought that was very well handled. Visually, I thought this game was also great. This was definitely the best looking Resident Evil game that I think I've played to date. So I'm real curious to see what they do. I'm not sure if there was like a major difference because I was playing this on PlayStation 5 compared to PlayStation 4. So I'm not sure if there was a big major graphical improvement, but just overall I thought it was great. Another element of the gameplay I forgot to mention was exploration. There is a lot of extra things to find in this game, and I was surprised with the amount of kind of like semi-bosses I encountered. Like sometimes if I want to do some exploring, you would kind of run into like a mini-boss, and some of these bosses were quite challenging. However, I do find it a little bit confusing how a gameplay factor that they added this time around is the ability to block attacks. It just seems like when you compare to the remakes, each of them had like a little gameplay gimmick. Like I think in the remake of 2 they didn't really have anything, and then in the remake of 3 they gave you like the ability to dodge. But in this game you have the ability to kind of block attacks just by putting your arms up. Though I'm not sure how that works when you're getting attacked by a giant werewolf wielding a giant mace that's like twice your size. I don't really know how doing this helps. But apparently that's this game's gimmick. But heck, I won't complain too much about that. I just thought it was a little bit hilarious in certain situations. How I was like, that probably should have killed me. So thankfully it didn't. This game very much reward you for doing exploring. Definitely take your time with this one. There's definitely a lot of things to find. I think that's really all I need to say in terms of going into too many spoilers. I think that's about it. So overall, if I had to give Resident Evil 8 Village, or whatever you want to call it, Gold Edition, if I had to give it a rating, I would give this a solid 8. If you are someone like me who is not a fan of playing this in first person and wanted to play this in third person, definitely pick this up. It definitely feels much better playing it in third person as it is in first. Now, I haven't, at the time of this recording, I have not had a chance to play the Shadow of Rose DLC, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't really affect my overall score of the game itself. Overall, I still think that Resident Evil 8 on its own is a great game. If you haven't a chance to play it, please get it now. So that's my thoughts on Resident Evil 8. If you did have a chance to play this game, I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments down below as well. So like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you all next time.